The following is a presentation of SIRTOBA Media and COMI Media Incorporated.
Welcome, one and all. It's that time again. We're back for Total Football Talk Extra. And as always, got to give a special introduction for our co-host today. And I'm here with the headbanging as well as we bring back our man, Mr. Ryan McCarthy. Welcome back to Extra.
The X is for extra.
Yes, sir. As we are back for now episode 6, our 6th consecutive week of talking Total Football Talk Extra, keeping our coverage for the CFL alive and well this week, as we are here to discuss the fact that Alberta will not be represented in the CFL playoffs for the first time since 1945. There's a lot going on with that news right there. As, you know, we were discussing last week, the possibilities, well, they came into fruition now after what we saw, especially with the Calgary Stampeders now being 0-3-1 in their past 4 games. It is absolutely a dumpster Pelican sight to see, and we have many things to discuss on the slate for this week. But we have to take it into review, and let's go ahead and start it off with the Friday game. Friday games, as we had 2 Friday games this past week. We'll start off with the 7 p.m. contest between the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the Hamilton Tiger Kitties, as this game was an absolute blowout when you look at the score. Right here, 31-10, the visiting Winnipeg Blue Bombers came into town and absolutely waxed that expletive. I'm going to try to watch myself as we got a little carried away a couple weeks ago. I was talking about my man Hawk in the comparisons when it comes to got yo expletive. Now, when it comes to this game, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, again, 31-10 was that score. And we have to look at the fact that Zach Collaros, 201 passing yards and a touchdown, along with 2 carries for 14 yards on the day. He did enough. Didn't do a lot, but he did enough to help this team win the game. Another part that also helped them out on offense was Brady Oliveira had 24 carries, 147 yards, and a touchdown, along with 1 reception for 15 yards on the day. Terry Wilson Jr. got in on the action. Not a lot of production as far as his carries, 6 carries for only 15 yards, but he did have 2 rushing touchdowns, looking good there in red zone action. Kevin's Sierkius, and I probably butchered that name, but hey, did the best I mother-fathering could. When you look at that name right there, it is a cool name. I definitely butchered it, but hey, help us in the comments if you know how it is actually pronounced. 3 receptions for 36 yards on the day, along with the touchdown. Also, Kenny Lawler had 3 receptions for 78 yards on the day. And the Blue Bombers defense have 3 sacks and 2 interceptions, one by Tyrell Ford and Dietrich Nichols. Both of those gentlemen have been active on the defense. That is not their first interception they have accrued this season. You got to look at the other side of the ball. Bo Levi Mitchell, 217 passing yards and 2 interceptions, along with James Butler's 7 carries for 24 yards and a touchdown. He also did add 2 receptions for 16 yards, but a very mediocre day for Mr. Butler, as he has been the workhorse for that rushing offense of the Hamilton Tiger Kitties. Brendan O'Leary Orange, 2 receptions for 86 yards, along with Keandre Smith, 6 receptions for 54 yards. Mark Lehio Maehiho, very quiet on the day, but he was 1 for 1 on field goals on the day, and he did muster up that one long of 15 yards. The kicking specialist getting on the board, but not enough to help this team get over the hump on this day. What are your overall thoughts for looking back at this Friday contest between these two teams right here?
So yeah, this was definitely a, we both picked the Tiger Cats. They were the Tiger Cats. They were the Battle Cats. I don't know if you're familiar with He-Man, the Masters of the Universe, Drew, but they were one of my favorites when I was growing up. And you had Cringer, the literal scaredy cat who turned into Battle Cat when Prince Adam became He-Man. And unfortunately, the Tiger Cats went back to the Tiger Kitties, like Battle Cat went back to Cringer. So yeah, I brought back the old school cartoon reference here. And unfortunately, the Boveralls did not work out in this game, and the Tiger Cats had their chances. They had their chances, especially in the first half. They were only down. They were only down 13 to 7, and then off of a long catch and run that got them all the way down to they got the Tiger Cats all the way down to the 7-yard line of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Just couldn't get in the end zone. That was the big difference. And then just all the momentum just seemed to snowball in the Blue Bombers direction. And we can see it on the score. You can see it on the score. They took control. Bria Oliveira, yet again, having a great day, almost 150 yards rushing and a touchdown, 1 reception for 15 yards. Zach Claros didn't really have to do too much, and that's fine. Yeah, especially with this offense and the way that Winnipeg has come together after that 0-4 start. Now they're 9-6, I believe. Let's look at the standings here. Yeah, 10-6. Excuse me. They're 10-6.
Yes,
they earned themselves a playoff berth. They had the chance to earn themselves a first-round bye for the West Final. They have a chance to earn themselves a first-round bye for the West Final tonight. As we talk, the game tonight at 8:00 against Toronto. That'll be an interesting matchup. We'll talk about them later, but yeah, the way that this team has come together, despite all the injuries, despite the bad play in the beginning, despite everything that's happened, we talked about, and some people are talking about the Blue Bombers' demise. Is this it? Is this it for the dynasty? Sorry, the news of their demise is, as in the words of Mark Twain, has been greatly exaggerated, and this team just keeps rolling on. This team just keeps rolling on.
I think the closest that we were at to seeing their demise was at the beginning of the year. And, they did not start off well at all, but they had very few people in their corner at that point, and you being one of them. I'll at least give you the credit where it was due. I was the hater, okay? I was the one saying that it's over at that point. Yes, I'll if I'm going to expletive my cereal, I guess I'll have to eat it at that point because, I did. And I said that it was done, and I was wrong. And it was a good hype video for anybody who happened to come across it being on that team, as something like that would, could help spark the team around. Not taking any credit for it by all means. I'm sure there was other people out there saying similar things and probably within the same locker room feeling the same way at that point. But they overcame that. And you look at where they're at now, like you said, 10-6. They're looking pretty good. And, with what happened with the Tiger Kitties has been absolutely atrocious to watch all year long. They were served one big fat steakage. Hey, look at that, Mr. McCarthy. 31-10. That is one horrible L, as we are looking at the first of 3 games from this past weekend. And before we go too much further, let's take a look at the overall schedule. We did have 3 teams on bye this past weekend. We had Toronto Argonauts, the Ottawa Redblacks, and the Montreal Alouettes. And the Argonauts, who are now 8-7, we were talking about how the bye week could hurt them, with them finally getting back over 500 for the first time in a little bit. We look at the Ottawa Redblacks, who are 8-6-1, just a little bit ahead, but not so much, further, because they have had their struggles as of late. And the Montreal Alouettes are 11-3-1 as well, looking at the 3 bye teams from this past Week 18's matchups. Just now are in the discussions of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the Hamilton Tiger Kitties, as, again, the Blue Bombers whooped their expletive in this Week 18 game, 31-10. Can't say it enough. The first of 2 Friday games this past week. And we do have a couple comments, it looks like, here in the chat. Sick Diggy is in the house saying good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, as well as it's time to get extra wild and extra crazy and extra hardcore. Welcome to Total Football Talk Extra, as we just threw the Quad X there for you, Sick Diggy. Thank you for tuning in. All the
workout.
It was. Getting ready, as you and I are both doing double podcast duties today.
And I have to add, in the words of Mick Foley, he's hardcore. He's hardcore.
We may or may not. Oh, we at least have one wrestling button for me to click.
Acknowledge me.
Along with.
You guys want to hear a fucking story?
And don't forget.
Oh, yeah, you're fucking scared. Yeah, you're fucking scared, man.
Well, it is spooky season after all.
Is that a total
Surprise, motherfucker.
All right, I'm getting carried away with clicking these buttons. We still have a lot more to click and a lot more show left. We're just getting mother-fathering started today, okay? Welcome to Total Football Talk Extra. Because all of you that are watching right now, no matter what platform, between mine, Cole's, and Ryan's, watching this show right now, You like that! You like that! Yes, we keep it within the spirit of football today. Not NFL, that's a CFL. You'll have to watch the NFL show on Mondays with myself and Cole. Keep those comments coming like Sick Diggy just did, and we will keep bringing the action here today. But with that being said, we still have another Friday game to look at. This one was
two.
This one, I'm gonna have to request the bowling shoe ugly one.
I was just about to request it myself.
Yes, we do need that button, but the one that I felt like we really needed, I requested. That was the only one that was on my mind earlier as I was preparing. But with this 32-15 contest, absolutely ugly. The Calgary Stampeders have been playing very, very ugly, as they travel to British Columbia to take on the Lions this past weekend on Friday night at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. Lost 32-15. The home team Lions getting the win here, and a fashion of a way we would call bowling shoe ugly. And with that being said, let's take a look at this game right here. Nathan Rourke, 216 passing yards, 3 carries for 23 yards. Nothing spectacular, but there was one player that made a spectacular impact, and we'll get to him momentarily. William Stanback, 15 carries for 50 yards on the day, along with 2 receptions for 19 yards. Keon Hatcher, 4 receptions, 97 yards, along with Justin McInnes' 5 receptions for 37 yards on the day. The Lions defense, 1 sack with 2 interceptions, one by Matthew Betts, along with another by Adrian Green. The star of the team for the Lions of the day was Sean White with a Y. As you look at this, the reason is why, because he had 6 of 6 for field goals on the day with a long of 47 yards. On the other side of the ball, the Stampeders just struggled all day long. The quarterback wasn't even good enough for me to put him on the board this week. I mean, that's
2
just
quarterbacks playing this game.
Yes, and they weren't even good enough for me to put them on the board. We'll talk about Reggie Begelton 4 receptions for 73 yards and a touchdown, along with Ishmael Hyman's 4 receptions for 40 yards and a touchdown. The Stampeders defense had 3 sacks on the day. I mean, the 3 sacks is pretty good, but the rest of it was pretty bad. I mean, if you really want to know what the quarterbacks did on the day, Jake Meyer was 19 to 27 for 164 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions, which is why I left him off the boards initially. And Matthew Shills, 4 of 5, 99 yards and a touchdown. He was better than Jake Meyer in cleanup duty, but you might as well call him Schlitz, because this team looked like they were having a little bit too many of them in the background, bucking them, having a great time playing Canadian football up here in Canada. Now, looking at this, what are your overall thoughts on how much of a terrible game this was to watch, my man?
Yeah, if you're a Calgary Stampeders fan, you are definitely down in the Schlitzes this season for sure. Yeah, and this officially knocked off the Calgary Stampeders out of playoff contention for the first time since 2004. 20-year streak is see you later. See you later. Yeah, I wish we had that bowling shoe ugly graphic, because this game was just atrocious. It was awful. You didn't know what you're going to see out of the BC Lions in this game. They score 1 offensive touchdown. 1. And I'll give credit where credit's due to the Calgary Stampeders offensive line and the offense period, for one reason, because they kept Matthew Betts off the board, only 1 tackle recorded, but had that pick 6 off that Jake Meyer. Oh my God, what a terrible throw he made. Basically right into the belly of Matthew Betts, who took it all the way back for a touchdown. BC Lions, they got to figure their stuff out on offense. Nathan Rourke, 216 passing yards, 23 rushing yards. William Stanek, only 50 yards rushing. My goodness, this guy ran over the Montreal Alouettes a month ago. Yes, they won, but I'm still going to criticize you, because the offense, they have no identity. Like, between the 2 quarterbacks they've used this year, between Vernon Adams Jr. and Nathan Rourke now, especially over the last month, I can't figure them out. Period. And I'm sure that BC Lions fans who bought themselves a Grey Cup ticket all the way back in June and July after that scorching start they had, now to see them at this point, they might not even earn themselves a home playoff game for the Western semifinal because of how they've played. But give them credit where credit's due. They at least try to get in field goal range for Sean White to hit 6 of 6 field goals. Congratulations to him. And then the Stampeders. My God, I think Jake Mayer has played himself out of a job. He's not starting this week, and they signed PJ Walker after what they had done was they traded for his rights from Toronto. They had acquired his rights from Toronto at the trade deadline. Nobody knew about it. And then he was signed on the practice roster just a few days later. So, yeah, this was one of those games that you have been happy if you're on the East Coast to have slept for, because this was a sleeper. And I caught the highlights, or should I say the lowlights of this game. There was not much home to write about. And the final score doesn't reflect what the game actually was. Even with all those field goals, I mean, BC could have lost this game without all those field goals kicked by Sean White, and without that pick 6. They would have lost this game because their offense has been in a milk carton for the past 3 weeks. So BC's got one more game. They got 2 more games left. Excuse me. They got 2 more games left, fighting it out for a Western playoff spot. They're playing the team that's right ahead of them, based off of a tie. And yeah, they got to figure this out on offense, or this is not going to be a good ending to this season. After a great beginning, it's turning into a bad ending.
It's definitely been tough to watch. With, like you said, you threw a lot of big zingers out there. When you think about the fact that first time in 20 years, this team hasn't been in there. The first time since 1945 that an Alberta team hasn't represented, in CFL. Looking back between the first game we talked about and this one, it was kind of a toss-up on which one we kind of could choose as the worst game of the week because they were both bad. Both Friday games were absolutely tough to watch. I mean,
the first half of Winnipeg Hamilton was all right, and then Winnipeg, and then Hamilton didn't show up and this was at home. This was at home with a chance to go to kind of get closer to Toronto, who was on a bye week, and they didn't show up in the second half. Shame.
Definitely. Hopefully they can make some moves during the offseason because whether you're bringing in practice squad players to elevate themselves or whatever you're trying to do out here in the gridiron, it's not working. It's not working at all. It's definitely been one of the worst teams for us to cover this entire season. Just looking at how bad it was with the Calgary Stampeders. But hopefully they can turn things around and we can enjoy talking about them in 2025 because right now, in 2024, it has absolutely not been the case. But one thing that has been the case is the comments that have been flowing from our man Sick Diggy, and we have to bring him back up on the screen right quick. As at Ryan McCarthy, you can never go wrong with the Mick Foley quote, "Have a nice day."
Can never. Never, ever.
There it is. As far as the Calgary Stampeders go, all good things must come to an end.
Yep. It was a great streak. It was a great run they had. But I don't know if it's because Dave Dickinson assuming both the GM and the coach role. He's kind of missed the mark with the coaching end. This is what I don't like about coaches having the GM role as well. It's not so much because they have too much power, it's because they have too much responsibility. And one side is going to be affected. Either your coach is going to be affected or your personnel decision is going to be affected. And overall, it just affects the play in the field. And as we've been seeing all season in Calgary, it hasn't been good. And as a result, they're currently 4-10-1. They're basically playing for pride the rest of the season and for a number 1 pick in the CFL draft for next year.
Yeah, with only 3 weeks left in the regular season, they better show us some type of spark that we could potentially be witnessing for some potential for next year. Because right now,
AJ Walker season.
As they down the Schlitz. That's the only thing I could think of. If you are a fan of the Calgary Stampeders, it's kind of like being a fan of the Washington Commanders up until this season because it has been really, really ugly to watch. You got to feel bad for them just as you felt bad for those fans of the NFL team. Now it's the Cleveland Browns. I mean, it's been kind of like that for the Cleveland Browns for several years. I mean,
since 1999 when they came back to the league.
Pretty much. I mean, it has been it's been tough. I can't say it enough. I've experienced my own version of the tale of woe with the Commanders in the NFL. And now looking at it for what it is in the CFL for some of these teams, I can understand like the Bret Harts of the world who are a fan of the Calgary Stampeders looking at this team and being like, yep, watching the first quarter and turning the game off, flipping to something else, or just getting out in the house and doing something else because it's not worth sitting there and subjecting yourself to that for the entire game.
At least the Flames are back on the ice, Calgary fans.
Yes.
At least you got that.
You do have that, and hopefully things go well for you in that case because hockey is now officially back as that was rejuvenated this week. A new season was brought to us.
A new season is here.
It is. That way, even better things can begin as a response to this. As far as Stampeders go, all good things must come to an end. That way, even better things can begin, in the words of Sick Diggy. And as always, if you're new to the channel, as SIRTOBA has gained another 9 subscribers this past week, subscribe now and never miss out on new content, whether you're watching this on SIRTOBA Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome, COMI Media, or if you're watching this on Ryan's platforms as well, no credentials required, or his personal platforms. And even today, you can see us on Facebook for a rare sighting, as well as on LinkedIn is we're getting our money's worth because of what StreamYard did to us this past month. I'm not going to get into that because I'm a little heated about that right now when I saw my bill double this past week.
Yeah.
So, yes, we'll talk about that once we go off the air. We're going to keep it positive right here and now. But yes, StreamYard, we're making some changes, bro. So, with that being said, we now have to take it to our game of the week. And with our game of the week, we got to take it to Saturday. And I clicked the wrong button. It's not supposed to see our pretty face. It's supposed to see this right here. We're supposed to see the Saskatchewan Roughriders travel to Edmonton to take on the Elks as they won this game 28-24 in this Week 18 contest this past Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Looking at this game, the reason why it was the game of the week, look how close it was. I mean, Trevor Harris shows up with 358 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. He did make 2 mistakes with the 2 interceptions, which probably helped keep this game as close as it was. Had 2 carries for 6 yards on the day as well. The rushing game was very, very quiet. They definitely are missing our man Raquel Armstead out there, since he got banged up a couple weeks ago. Looking at that, Frankie Hickson, who's been the main contributor as the RB2 since taking over a few weeks into the season, 15 carries on the day, not bad. Was able to establish the run with that, but only 46 yards on the ground was not a lot. Shea Patterson puts up 2 carries for a whopping 1 yard on the day, but he did get a rushing touchdown in the red zone to help them get another score. Keyshawn Johnson, not related to the NFL's Keyshawn Johnson, made some noise again this week with 5 receptions for 103 yards and a touchdown. Samuel Emilus, 4 receptions for 126 yards and a touchdown as well. The Roughriders defense, 2 interceptions, one by Adam Auclair and another by Roland Milligan, who has been definitely making some noise on the defensive side all year long with several interceptions on the year from Mr. Milligan. The kicker, Brett Lowther, also adds 2 of 2 for field goals with a long of 50 yards, which is why the Saskatchewan Roughriders got the dub in this past week's contest. Looking on the other side for the Elks, McLeod Bethel-Thompson nearly throws for 400 yards on the day as he had 379 passing yards with 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions as well. Geno Lewis, 5 receptions for 87 yards and a touchdown, along with Dylan Mitchell's 4 receptions for 55 yards and a touchdown as well. The Elks defense, 3 sacks, 2 interceptions that they hauled in as well, one by Cordell Jackson and another by a man whose name I will probably butcher. Let's give it a shot. Luchez Purifoy. Probably butcher.
No, you got it.
I got it.
You got it.
Yes. Good job, myself and Luchez, for having a name that's not that difficult to pronounce. Now, looking at this game right here, Mr. McCarthy, close one. Would you put this more on the shoulders of Trevor Harris and his 2 interceptions, costing them this game, considering the fact that you look at the other side of the ball and you have McLeod Bethel-Thompson's 2 interceptions? Which quarterback cost them to be this close of a contest? Was it Harris keeping the game close, or was the game thrown away by McLeod Bethel-Thompson and they could have won this game without his 2 interceptions?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Yes,
It's both. It's a little bit of both. Honestly, it's a little bit of both. Look, Saskatchewan, I've been banging this drum for how many weeks now? 6
consecutive, yes.
Yeah, 6. With the exception of the one game where Raquel Armstead ran for over 200 yards, and our guy Thomas Bertrand Houdon, passe le poupon,
Great poupon,
had 72 yards in his filling in his stead last week against Ottawa. It's been absent, and it showed in this game. Edmonton's defense held it down. Limited the Roughriders running attack. Frankie Hickson only had 46 yards. He's not their usual starter. He's probably second or third string, so he's not going to be in the lineup. So it forces the issue. And when you hold down the rushing attack, it forces the issue on your quarterback. Trevor Harris, great job, 358 passing yards, two touchdowns, but throw those 2 interceptions to help keep the game close. And I will give credit where credit's due. The Edmonton Elks last week, they were pulverized by Winnipeg, absolutely pulverized, and that eliminated those basically killed their chances of going to the playoffs after such a great August into September. That bye week absolutely killed their momentum. It absolutely killed the momentum. Had the close-ish loss at home against Winnipeg, then getting the brakes beaten off of them the next week in Winnipeg. They had a chance to kind of make up ground. Had a chance to kind of make up ground, especially with Calgary going down. But unfortunately, Ethel Thompson. I'll talk about him in my closing thoughts. Great effort, 379 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, but the last interception he threw was the costliest one of all, and that one basically ended the game for them. I give credit to the Riders defense, who had been struggling, but now they got 2 straight wins. They're earned themselves a playoff spot, and they're in the driver's seat right now for the home game for the Western semifinal. So it's a little column A, little column B, because Trevor Harris, he threw interceptions that could have cost them the game, but at the same time, Ethel Thompson threw 2 interceptions, one of them which basically ended the game, and any comeback chances for the Edmonton Elks.
Yeah, it's been nice to see the Roughriders make their comeback, because for several weeks after their hot start to the year, myself, you, Cole, others that we know that watch CFL were questioning if this team could potentially make a run, like legitimately come back. Because after their start, the first 5 to 6 weeks of the season, it was looking good for this team. They get banged up, the quarterback position, the running back position. They're down to their second and third string in multiple ways. They finally bring in somebody like Raquel Armstead, who was struggling over in Ottawa, comes in, has that breakthrough performance. Then after that game, where it's acknowledged that he gets hurt, not long after that. So looking at that, this team could have easily folded not long after that situation. And they've still been finding a way to win games with the running back they didn't even want, if you want to put it out there as a headline, because, Hickson wasn't doing the best that he could to fill in as the overall starting running back at that point, which is why they went and got Raquel Armstead off the waiver line. He comes in, he basically, after that game, I was sold as him being the RB1, myself at least. Then he gets banged up. We have to revert back to Hickson, and they're still finding a way to win games, even with some subpar numbers of like 15 carries for 40-some yards. He's still getting it done. It's still establishing the run, running it 15 times. However, looking at the comparisons between the 2 running backs, and even, with their original running back, do you think this team has a chance, even though they're in the playoffs, to make it to the Grey Cup final and be a legitimate threat at winning the Grey Cup this year?
Well, I do have some good news for you, Drew. Your guy, AJ Willett, is back in the lineup this week for the BC Lions.
Yes.
So against the BC Lions, for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. So they got their starting running back in the lineup. He's going to provide a dual threat, both in rushing and in receiving. So he's very good pass catching receptions out of the backfield. So now they've got, if Armstead can get healthy in time for the playoffs, it gives them a 1-2 punch at the running back position. In addition to guys like Keyshawn Johnson and Samuel Emelis, who are both having pretty outstanding season. Unfortunately, I believe Ajo is gone for the remainder of the season. With an injury, so he probably would have been a shoo-in for the Western Rookie of the Year, because he had been playing very, very well after he was drafted and had a very good rookie season until he got hurt. I do want to say one thing about Roland Milligan. I was listening to the Tune Out CFL podcast. It's a great podcast. They're based north of the border. And there's a campaign right now by by another podcast, by Saskatchewan Roughriders podcast. They're raising money for CFL Fans Against Cancer. They're selling lawn signs, trying to get momentum for Roland Milligan as West Division candidate for most outstanding player. And he's got a case. He's got a case. I believe he leads the league in interceptions at the moment. So
correct.
You got a case for him.
I mean, this guy, when it comes to this team, I've spoke more of Roland Milligan on the defensive side. I mean, just as much as I've spoken about wide receivers and running backs on the offensive side for not just this team, but many teams. Roland Milligan, throughout the entirety of the past 18 consecutive weeks between doing this coverage on the original show and now on our spinoff show with X right here, Roland Milligan has been a topic of discussion for this defense, even when they were at their low points. So putting all that in perspective, there's no doubt that he's not at the top of the league in interceptions, if not leading the league, because of the amount of times I've had to discuss this man's name. And it's not a complaint whatsoever. And especially for myself, who in this season adopted my fanhood for the Roughriders, because this team is something special, Ryan McCarthy. They are going to do something special, if not this year, very soon. I got that feeling about them like I have about the commies of the NFL. It's not quite their year yet. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid, okay? If you saw my short from the other day where I was talking about Washington Commanders fans saying they're going to the Super Bowl or smoking way too much crack and they need to stop drinking the Kool-Aid, because they still haven't played a team with a winning record for one, which they get their real test this Sunday at 1:00, rolling off into NFL coverage for a second. But right here, the same comparison could be made for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, because they were winning these games to start the year, some of them against pretty good teams, but a lot of those wins were coming against teams that haven't truly been tested yet. And plus, it takes until about the midway point in the season for you to really get a true understanding of what this team really is. And by the time we got to that point in the season, they were on a losing streak. And we were starting to see the things exposed from that team that anybody would be concerned about if you are a fan of that team or just a fan of the sport in general. Looking ahead to now that we're reviewing Week 18 and about to preview Week 19, they figured those things out. They've been working on them, and they knew, just like we were saying for several weeks, that one of the biggest things they were getting exposed at was their rushing game. And they were not doing well whatsoever because, like you said, AJ Alouette's been out. Frankie Hickson had a few good games in there, but he wasn't consistent. And every good team that is a contender and is a legitimate threat to others in the playoffs has a strong running game along with a decent defense, at least. If you have those two at best, if you can stop the run and the pass, at decent points throughout the game, and you can actually establish the run to set up play actions, and if you have a mobile quarterback, RPOs, and the fact that you're doing it on 3 downs instead of 4 like in the NFL, if you can do that, then you've got a recipe for something pretty decent moving forward.
Yep. I agree. All good points there.
So what do you guys think here in the comments? Drop us a line. Sick Diggy, what are your thoughts? Haven't seen your comments in a while there, Sick, especially when it comes to the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I love saying it. I've had a great opportunity to say it, and I'll say it again. The Saskatchewan Roughriders. And I'm going to say it again here in a little bit when we preview the upcoming week's contest. But looking here at Week 18's review, I got to say, and I'm glad that you agree with it. I mean, it wasn't really hard to come up with this right here. The fact that the Roughriders and the Elks game was the game of the week, even though, like the Calgary Stampeders, the Elks have been a team that we could do without seeing this past season. I mean, if they were going to eradicate 2 teams in this league, you could say bye to both of them right now, or at least say just pack your stuff and go home because it's ugly to watch.
It's not fun.
No,
It's not fun, and it's not funny.
it's not fun. It's not funny, but at the same time, we have to talk about it. They're part of the league. We can't exclude them because then they're going to get on us for exclusions.
At least not until playoff time.
Yes, but we're only 3 weeks away from doing that. And once it's just wild to think that we're like 5-6 weeks away from being done with the CFL already. Like it went by so fast. Yes, it went by so fast. We'll still find some after season coverage for a little bit, talk about them for a couple weeks, but then we're going to be close to the holidays. We'll have to wrap some things up. We may have to expand our creativity to keep TFTX going, but we'll talk about that off the air. But right here and now, when it comes to the review of week 18, that pretty much is it. When it comes to that, these 3 games is what we just discussed. Those were the 3 teams, the bottom left corner that were on bye, the Argonauts, the Red Blacks, the Alouettes. And you look at those teams right there as we now get ready to take it into the next series of games. It's time that we not only go from these next series of games, but we get to talk about the grand champ of the week.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989 on 2. Ready? Hey!
Total Football Talk Extra.
Where my dogs at? I knew I forgot to click a button before we got that last segment started. Welcome to Friday, ladies and gentlemen, as we take it to the grand champ of the week. Let's see what Mr. McCarthy has to say about his.
My grand champ of the week, or should I say grand champs of the week.
Ooh.
The offensive line of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Let's see what they did last Friday against the the formerly known as the Hamilton Tiger Cats, now known as the Hamilton Cringers, as I like to call them now. 201 yards passing. That's okay. It's a standard day for Zach Collaros. Didn't have to do too much. But here's what they did their biggest work. 36 rushing attempts. 199 yards.
Oh. And
they helped Brady Oliveira to 147 yards rushing, and for a net total. I mean, their gross total was 400 yards even, with the losses being sacks and kneeling down for time's sake, losses of 7 yards. So, but that's the impressive stat: 199 yards rushing, and they had over 38 minutes of possession in this game. That's on the O-line. That's on the offensive line. And I gotta give credit where credit. Look, I'm a former offensive lineman myself. I played O-line. We never got the love that we deserve. I'm gonna give the Blue Bombers offensive line keeping Zach Collaros relatively clean. Only give up only one sack. Give up only one sack in the day, but get this uniform pretty clean for the day and help Brady Oliveira do the really hard work on the ground for 147 yards and 199 yards total. That's my grand champ of the week. Shared amongst the unit for all 5 guys. Winnipeg Blue Bombers offensive line. That's my grand champs of the week.
I like it. Not everybody gives love to the offensive line. It's just not a sexy pick, but in this week's case, it is. I have to give a shout out to Mr. McCarthy for that, as we will bring up one comment before we acknowledge the rest. We will acknowledge the rest of the comments here in a second, but even the espresso McCarthy is right here and there, because that is what is fueled by his take right there. The espresso McCarthy. Do not get us started. We could talk about coffee for the next hour, because I have become an advocate for coffee this year. We will talk more about that later, but we are going to talk football right now. As much as I want to talk about the Saskatchewan Roughriders and make them part of my choice for this week. I just can't do it. I just can't do it on this week. I have to go with something that was a little bit more stand-outish than that. And what I have to choose is one player who made an impact on the team, and had he not made this impact, this team would not have won. I'm going to look at the BC Lions and the Calgary Stampeders game. There's one player that made an impact in this game that, yes, even though he was set up by the offense to make these plays, he was perfect on the day. He was 6 for 6, as in fact. Have you ever heard of a rapper from back in the day? His name was Lil White. Okay, I have.
I know a Dirty White, but not Lil.
Well, you're going to look up Lil White by the end of the show, I promise you,
All
okay?
right.
Because there's people out there who say, we want the smoke, all right? And Lil White, Lilwhyte, it was spelled the same as this man's last name. He had this song called the Smoking Song. It don't last very long, but it's guaranteed to get the job done. Smoke one. Not going to repeat the rest of the words because it's inappropriate, but look it up. But those words I just said are part of the song. Hail to Waz El Jefe and the 420, because that's basically where it refers to. This man, Shaun White, look at what he did. 6-6 on the day for field goals with a long of 47. Had this man not been perfect on the day, had he not made 6 of 6 for field goals, Mr. McCarthy, I wouldn't be talking about him as my dog of the week. But also, had he not put up 18 points on the day, this team would not have won this game. This team would have only put up 14 points, and they would have lost 15-14 to the Calgary Stampeders had they not made a single field goal on the day. So looking at it for what it is, Shaun White, Lil White, crank up the smoking song because he wanted the smoke, and that is why he is my pick for the dog of the week.
Solid pick.
My man.
Yeah, we've given all sorts of love for the unappreciated units of football throughout this entire season. The special teams, O-line, all the guys who do all the dirty work, all the unappreciated work, and we're continuing that traditions. We're continuing the traditions, and with both of our picks, yours especially with Mr. White, 6 for 6. We talked about a few weeks ago, Liram Hairolahu, or as you say, Liram. Yes, when he went 8 for 8, and the day before, in the game before, Brett Lowther went 7 for 7. So, field goals, it's only 3 points, but if you can if your kicker can go 5 for 5, 6 for 6, it's a good chance you win the game. And Shaun White, 6 for 6. Those 6 field goals count for something. That was the biggest difference of the game. That and the pick 6 by Matthew Betts.
Hey, with Shaun White, he served that big old steaky. Shout out to our man Cole Johnson for that awesome transition right there. This show would not be what it was, what it is, and what it can be without the...
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Of course you do. That's why you're still mother, father, and watching. He's still loving the music.
It's great music, man. I mean, love that music. In around sports debate, man.
I miss that guy, but don't get me started.
Let me talk to you.
When it comes to that, when it comes to certain situations, and especially when it comes to taking that L, can't click the button, it's too soon. We got to save it for later. But when it comes to when you're served that L, you need to
stop it. Get some help.
In the words of my man Huck, got your expletive. As we take it into the next segment, it's time for me and Ryan to take a look at, now from the dog of the week, we have to look at the snowflake of the week.
Total Football Talk Extra.
Oh, yeah. It's that time for the Snowflake of the Week, where we pick our worst player from the past week in week 18 for the CFL. And now it's time to go to Mr. McCarthy.
Well, I was generous in that last spot for the grand champ. I'm going to be very generous in this spot for my Snowflake of the Week. Or should I say the Snowflakes of the Week?
Ouch!
The Hamilton Tiger Cats. The second half, where were you guys? Your season's on the line. You're at home. You're riding a winning streak, a 4-game winning streak coming into this game. You were close to having the Blue Bombers, who were on an equally as hot streak, if not more so, coming into this game. You were starting to get them on the ropes. You were starting to get them on the ropes at halftime. Look, that last drive in the first half should have scored a touchdown. You would have been up 14-13 going into the locker room. Lots of momentum. Defense is playing great. Offense is doing okay. They're doing their thing. But they're doing just enough. They got the lead. Instead, you didn't show up. You didn't show up in the third quarter. You didn't show up in the fourth quarter. Both sides of the ball. You got run over, literally run over by Brady Oliveira for 147 yards. You allowed them to control the tempo of the game. And for that reason, you're now sitting at 5. You're now sitting at 6-10. You're still in playoff contention, but it all ends if Toronto wins this week. And you had a great chance to keep yourself in the playoff running. With an Argonauts team that was on a bye week, you would have been 2 points behind them this week. 2 points going into the bye week for your last 2 games of the season, and you didn't show up in the second half. Didn't show up. I stopped Bo leaving after I saw that final score 31-10. You guys had a great chance. Yeah, great chance, and you blew it. And your team, because your entire team didn't show up in the second half of that game. And as a result, you're in the bye week waiting to see what happens tonight on Friday night in Winnipeg when Toronto visits Winnipeg. You're waiting on them. You have to wait for them to see what happens. And that'll determine the final 2 weeks of the season for you as to what happens. So, Hamilton Tiger Cats, entire team in the second half, you're my Snowflake for this week.
I like it. I definitely approve of your take. And I hope I don't have to put this team or any of the representatives from this team on my choice for Snowflake of the Week for the remainder of this 2024 season. I hope this is a wake-up call, and we're going to take it to this point right here and now. As my choice for the Snowflake of the Week is Ryan wants to go with a core of a team and not just really a player for Snowflakes. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go with the rushing attack, with the running game, with the running backs of the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I bet you didn't see that coming. The Saskatchewan Roughriders.
That's a curveball.
Oh, yeah. You know I love baseball, so here it comes. This is actually a slider. This is like a Randy Johnson slider. That's how nasty it is coming at your house. That's how
Watch out. Watch out, pigeons. Watch out.
It's coming. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, I just had that image in my head now. The pigeon exploding. Yes. 100-mile-an-hour. Poof. Poof. Yes. I'm going to have to find that. If I make this into a clip for that, I'm going to have to put that in there. Let's do a little editing. This part that I'm saying right now will be clipped out. You know how my game is, but right back to the topic. Now, when it comes to the Snowflake of the Week, my choice is the running backs for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and I'll tell you why. There's no way, absolutely no way they're going to be able to keep this winning streak up with that type of production out of the running backs. Yes, you bring a great point up earlier. AJ Allwood is excited to come back this upcoming week. But for this past weekend, from what we saw out of Frankie Hickson, the inconsistencies for this season, 15 carries for 46 yards, did not get in the end zone. That's very, very concerning. The only reason I feel like they did what they did was because they established the run with the 15 carries, and Trevor Harris's 2 interceptions weren't as detrimental as McLeod Bethel-Thompson's 2 interceptions, because had McLeod Bethel-Thompson not turned the ball over 2 times, I feel like the Elks could have upset the Roughriders in this past game. I'm just being 100% with you. On top of Frankie Hickson's, lack of production there for the running game, you have to take a look at the fact that you have Shea Patterson, who is a backup quarterback, in there for RPO options. He's in there running the ball twice on the goal line, runs the ball twice, gets a touchdown, but yardage-wise, gets 1 yard. When I look at my snowflakes of the week, when I look at a team that I have been riding high on for the past 18 weeks in the Saskatchewan Roughriders, you cannot make any type of run in the CFL playoffs and contend for a Grey Cup if you're going to have 15 carries for a mustering 46 yards out of your running back, regardless if he's the first, second, third, or 18th string running back. You're still wheeling him out there, and you're literally wheeling him out there like he's being wheeled out there when you're putting up numbers like that, because you're moving at a snail's pace. Do we blame it more on the offensive line, or do we blame it more on the running back? I think we have to blame it more on the running back, because you look at what Raquel Armstead did when he was picked up off the mother-fathering waiver line from the Red Blacks, came in there and absolutely destroyed the league from what it seemed like with his 200-plus yards. The fact that I made a reel out of it, and he liked it on Instagram, and it took off on the other platforms too, because we've been a little hot. If you notice, it got a little bit of a hot hand right now over the past 6 months. Thank you, Captions app, for giving me the captions and also the suggestions for the title. There's your spoiler alert. If you want to learn how to make better reels out here in these streets, for my man, Mr. McCarthy, and others who, not saying that he is this way, but there are some others who are jelly at the success that some of us are having out here in these streams. I just gave you a spoiler alert on how to catch up to me. Now, back to the snowflake of the week. The running backs of the Saskatchewan Roughriders. You have absolutely disappointed me consistently throughout this year, except for when AJ Alouette was healthy and playing, and except for that one game by our man Raquel Armstead. This has been a very lackluster point for this team. I feel like a reason why they went on the dive that they did. Part of it, you can blame the offensive line, but I still am not going to be taking that. I'm not going to make that the scapegoat when you look at what Raquel Armstead did in that game, regardless of who you were playing. He still made it work. Just like in the NFL, you bring in rookie quarterbacks, and they're playing with subpar offensive line, and they're making it work with their running backs and themselves by being mobile. I'm giving my snowflake of the week, snowflakes of the week, to the running back core of the Saskatchewan Roughriders.
Even with the dub, they still get the snowflake of the week. Amazing. And I'm looking at the stats of the game combined effort between the Elks and the Roughriders. Take a guess as how many yards rushing combined these teams had.
Not enough, because it wasn't even good enough for me to put their rushing numbers from the Elks on there. I would say maybe combined 70 yards?
A little higher.
82.
83.
Wow, I was close.
You're close. 53 for Saskatchewan, 30 for the Elks. Wasn't good.
That's terrible.
It was fitting.
Yeah.
And if one of their representatives is watching this show and they're getting butthurt right now,
You can't handle the truth.
because you know that if this is me and Mr. McCarthy looking at you and telling you these numbers.
Yeah, you're fucking scared. Yeah, you're fucking scared, man.
You're scared that the season is slipping through your pretty little fingers.
Unreal. And if they're offending, this is them problem. It's not an us problem. We're just stating facts.
You just wait until we get to the post game. I've got some pure fire that I'm going to make a clip out of because somebody had the audacity to make a comment to me last Sunday. And it's actually a result of these podcasts, and I cannot wait to put them in their place.
Oh boy.
But we're going to get all the football out the way first, as we have some comments that we have to look out first. And with these comments, we have to take it to our man Vicola, who is in the house. Says, how you doing on the TFT on the north side? First off, I bow to the big game hunter of dumpster pelicans worldwide, Sensei Drew Willingham, as the international Irish Italiano supervillain espresso with coffee. He must have ran out of words to put. He must have capped him.
I think he meant as well as.
Hey, call me Eli Manning because I'm just gonna read whatever is on the teleprompter. Okay, it says is like the one if you go on Amazon Prime and you see that new one where he gets Baker Mayfield to dress up as Gus Swayze and do some funny stuff, and Eli's just reading off the teleprompter. It says, Eli, don't read this. Eli, sit down. And then he continues to read off the stuff that he's reading. I was like, that's Drew Willingham all day long. That's myself. I poke fun at myself because if it's on the screen, I'm gonna read it. Like, this is how it is.
You're the Ron Burgundy of these streams. Anything that's put in front of you on the teleprompter, you're gonna read.
They tell me that I'm.
You the say classy, San Diego.
they tell me They tell me I'm the king of shenanigans.
Oh, my brother, testify.
Just doing what I can. Keep everything light. You know, that's all we can do out here in these streams. When it comes to that, here's a thought: will the CFL expand by at least 1 to 3 teams? I think they should expand to 1 more because then we wouldn't have all these ridiculous bye weeks of 3 games here, 4 games next, and I think it's a little out of hand with that. They need to have an additional team in there.
They should, and they've been working on this for so many years. I can't tell you. I was watching last week's Rod Peterson's show. He had TSN's Dave Naylor, and he brought up the question of whether if the UFL should fold. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't think it's not going to happen. But if it should fold, have St. Louis as an expansion franchise for the CFL. Try to bring him back to the United States. And I said, I think I would prefer to have him stay in Canada. I think you should have 1 more team in the East. We've been promised the Atlantic Schooners. Yes, it's an actual franchise name, the Atlantic Schooners. They would probably play in Halifax, Nova Scotia, I believe. But the thing is, you don't have a facility right now. You don't have a facility to hold 20,000 people, 25,000 people if you can expand it. You have to go to other facilities and have makeshift bleachers to fit fans in there. So you've got the Maritimes, Halifax, St. John's, New Brunswick. You've got Quebec City because Quebec is a college football hotbed right now. University of Montreal, University of Laval. Trying to remember which other Sherbrooke, University of Sherbrooke. Quebec is one of the hottest Canadian college football hotbeds currently. Their growth has exploded. You ideally want to see a 10th team, probably in the East. If not, probably Saskatoon out west. The Roughriders could have a natural rivalry and move Winnipeg back to the East, which we've had which we've seen in the past. But it's going to take money. It's going to take somebody investing. Like you need lots of money. All right. I don't know how much the expansion cost would be for the CFL. But you would have to have a guy with an owner or an ownership group with deep pockets who can invest in a stadium, who can put up salaries, get a marketing team, pay players, scouts, coaches, all that stuff, and put a good product in the field. It would have to take a lot. I would personally prefer if they stayed in Canada. I remember the CFL failed project in the United States expansion back in the 1990s and the mid 90s, with the exception of the Baltimore Stallions. The only reason why they left and moved up to Montreal is because the NFL moved back, because they saw what happened with a franchise at Memorial Stadium. They said, and Art Modell saw dollar signs from the city of Baltimore, and he moved them there. And that's why I don't have a CFL team in Baltimore anymore. Fun fact about CFL US expansion: there was going to be a team in Miami that was supposed to play in 1996, but unfortunately, with so many other teams declaring bankruptcy and a bunch of shenanigans happening with the ownership in Shreveport, and then Baltimore moving back up to Canada in Montreal, establishing themselves in Montreal. That failed. So yeah, I think they could expand. I'll believe it when I see it. I believe it when I see it. But it would take a lot. I would like to see it, because again, like you mentioned, Drew, you all these bye weeks and those shenanigans, you'd have an even schedule. So you don't have to have odd number of teams playing have at least one team not play every week.
It's just it's momentum crushers, man. Like, that's why, like, with the NFL, it's not quite as bad because you have one bye week.
Yeah,
and I just feel like with multiple bye weeks, it's hurting the production of these teams, because there's been points where you and I have both discussed it, where this team's on a hot roll, all of a sudden they're on a bye week, they come back, takes them 2 weeks to get back into the rhythm of where they were before they went on a bye.
We saw what happened with Edmonton.
Mm-hmm.
Edmonton was on a heater. They'd won four straight. They'd won, I think 5 of 6, 4 straight. Get a bye week, and all the momentum is erased. Now they're out of the playoffs.
We shall see how things turn about in the upcoming year. So hopefully, because like you said, they've been talking about it. It'd be nice if we get some good news, this offseason. Looking into 2025, there's a new team. And but yeah, I like your points, especially with what we've seen. The UFL has proven with St. Louis, how much of a city that is. It's been clamoring for professional football, and they've been showing up. As much as UFL is not as popular as the NFL or even the CFL, still, like, there's still a lot of people in attendance when St. Louis has their Battlehawks playing on the weekends at home. So we shall see if they decide to expand to the United States. But I like the take that you just gave, and we'll have to keep our eyes peeled for that one. 6 says, I'm glad I'm an 82 baby. 1982 was the Chinese year of the dog.
Appropriately enough for the dog of the week, the grand champ.
There it is. There it is. The inability to handle the truth is brought to you by Clear Water Laxative. Time to clear out the dirt when your butt hurt. And Slackjaw VPN, where the slacking be smooth. And remember, if you like the shenanigans, if you like the football coverage, whether it's NFL to start the week or CFL to end the week, along with the shenanigans in between with the other great shows that we have, spearheaded by Kyle Nash, D Willy in the evenings coming back soon, and hopefully before too long, the In or Out Sports Debate. But hey, I need a little more time on my hands. Subscribe now and never miss out on new content when it comes to SIRTOBA Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome. COMI Media, if you want to stay in tune with that, as well as both of these shows for Total Football Talk, is on that brand as well. And Ryan's platforms with no credentials required, and his own personal platforms that you are watching right here and now on this Friday. That takes us through the comments as of right now. That also takes us through the Snowflake of the Week and the Dog of the Week.
What?
And now we have to get to the 2-minute drill. Come on, Button! You failed me! I clicked you! You did nothing!
Total Football Talk XTRA.
Hopefully that shenanigans was good for you. I know it was good for you, Ryan, but I'm talking about you, the viewer, because I click the button, I sit back like I normally do for that 10, 20 seconds, kick my feet back. And I look over, there's nothing happening. I'm like, what is happening out here in these streams? But let's go ahead and take it to our first game that we're going to preview.
Hey. Who's giving them the business?
Looking now, tonight, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, the only Friday game this week for Week 19 is between the Toronto Argonauts, who are 8-7, and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who are 10-6. Ignore the one bye-week team, as the Hamilton Tiger Kitties are not playing this week. The 6-10 team finally gets a break off the air, so we don't have to watch them this week. But between the two games that I just announced, between the Argonauts, who are 8-7, and the Blue Bombers, who are 10-6, who wins this game? The away team coming off the bye, or the Blue Bombers, who have been hot as of late? Do they extend to 11-6, or do the Argonauts improve to 9-7 tonight?
Boy, this is a tough call. It's a tough call, and I'll tell you why. Because if you remember the last time the Toronto Argonauts played 2 weeks ago, they racked up over 260 yards rushing. 260 yards rushing. That's a pretty solid amount. But on the other side of the ball, on the flip side, Winnipeg Blue Bombers have one of the best run defenses in the entire league. This is even without one of their best run stoppers in Adam Bighill, who is unfortunately out for the rest of the year. Suffered a leg injury in the Banjo Bowl last month. I think if Toronto establishes the run, they have a chance to win. They have a very good chance to win. But you're also going up against not only the Blue Bombers, but also the crowd at the toolbox known as Princess Auto Stadium. We saw what happened a couple weeks ago when Edmonton came to town trying to stay alive in the playoffs, and Winnipeg went up 17-0 before you could blink your eyes. Before you could take a breath. They're up 17-0. So I think if Winnipeg gets off to a fast start, they can limit Toronto's chances. This will be a win for them, and they clinch the first round bye in the Western Final. However, if Toronto gets on if their run game gets going, and Chad Kelly can use that short passing game, take some chances downfield, kind of do some misdirections, use that run to set up the pass, Toronto's chances are really good. So, you know what? I'm going to go, but however, I learned my lesson from last week. I bet against we both went against the Bombers, and look what happened. We got bit. We got bombed. So, as much as I think Toronto could win this game, I think Winnipeg's momentum has been too good, and I think they're going to be fired up to clinch the first round bye. So I'm going to go with Winnipeg, but it's going to be a very close game. Very close game.
All right, Mr. McCarthy and the people.
You guys want to hear a fucking story?
Story is this. I feel like the Argonauts are going to get a case.
Diabetes.
Oh, I'm just kidding. They're not going to come down with a case of that. The entire team, no. That'd be a lot of candy they'd have to eat before the game.
That's a lot. Right. That's a lot of Ozempic.
A lot of it. Okay, consider there's less than 90 minutes before kickoff. Okay,
yeah.
Kickoff happens tonight.
That's right.
But you got to admit, when you saw that.
Yeah, you're fucking scared. Yeah, you're fucking scared, man.
All right, you probably didn't get scared, but I'm just trying to get everybody amped up right now. All right. Even though some of you are probably saying this.
English, motherfucker, do you speak it?
I'm trying to get the words out right now. All right. So looking right here and now, you are right. We both said that the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are going to lose West. I almost started talking like Elmer Fudd. Last week, okay? Last week, we said the Blue Bombers are going to lose to the Tiger Kitties. Do it. All right. Yeah, there it is. All right. Tiger Kitties. The mother, father, and lost bad to this team. Argonauts are not going to lose as bad to this team. It's not going to be a 31-10 contest. It's going to be a little bit more competitive than that. I think, like you said, the Argonauts, because they have a little bit of stronger running game. I like Kadeem Carey. I like what he has done, for that running game over there. And I don't want to count them out. I don't want to say that this game is going to be completely one-sided, like we should have predicted for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers to do last week. But we had too much faith in the Boveralls. We really did. We really had too much faith.
We drank that Kool-Aid. We drank that yellow and gold, like golden black Kool-Aid, and it poisoned us.
Yes, there's other Kool-Aids that we could drink that would be far worse than that, my man. All right. So looking here and now at this game, I think it's going to be relatively close. I think the Argonauts, like you were saying, are going to establish the run. I think they're going to get Kadeem Carey going relatively early, and it's going to be close. However, I cannot go against the Blue Bombers this week. I just cannot choose against them as much as I want to kind of side with the Argonauts and give them a little bit of hope based on what I just said about their running game, because there's certain elements to their offense that I really like. The Blue Bombers have just been mother-fathering hot as of the past second half of this season. I'm going to go with the Blue Bombers. I'm going to say it's going to be close. It's going to kind of be like what the Roughriders and the Elks game was as far as score goes. I think it's going to be less. It's going to be in the single digits as far as the win. But I don't think it's going to be decided more so on turnovers like that game was. I just think as far as competition and elements of the game between both offenses, because both offenses have been playing really well this year, which is why the Argonauts have a winning record as of right now. I feel like they fall to 8-8 after this game. And nobody's going to say anything negative about that because of the type of team that is on a roll in the Blue Bombers right now. So a lot of the things that you just said, I agree with, and I'm going to stick with as I say that the Blue Bombers win this game.
Yeah. I mean, apt analysis.
I appreciate it. Sick Diggy was rolling with me. We going back and forth with the things I was doing and the transitions I was clicking a minute ago. Shout out to our guy Sick Diggy, as Pulp Fiction is still one of the greatest movies in his book.
It's a good movie. It's a good movie. It's a Quentin Tarantino. It's one of the best, if not the best movie of the 1990s.
You knew I was going to click that button at some point. Was that a total
Surprise, motherfucker.
You know it wasn't. You know it wasn't, even though some people are probably out there saying this.
Stay off the weed.
Let me have my Saturday nights, okay? All right, let me have my Saturday nights. All right? I'm not hurting anybody.
What?
I'm not hurting anybody.
What?
Pulp Fiction is a great movie.
What?
Oh!
Yeah.
All right, now let's get to our next game. As
We have to.
We do. This one is absolutely this is bad. This is bad.
Hey. Who's giving them the business?
I wasn't kidding. It's the 5-11 Elks tomorrow on Saturday at 3:00 p.m. Eastern time. Travel to Calgary to take on the 4-10-1 Stampeders in this week's Toilet Bowl. What do you think about this week's Toilet Bowl between these two teams, Ryan? Who wins, and should we mother-fathering care?
Excuse me, I'm going to just take a nap real quick.
Holy crap.
You can't handle the truth.
So
that's why you got to take a nap.
That's why I got to take a nap. Look, there's a Ben Folds 5 song, "The Battle of Who Could Care Less." It's one of the it's a great 90s alternative song. No, I'm talking about all 90s in this segment. Yeah. This is the battle of which fan base could care less right now. All right. Edmonton, both teams are out of it, as it says on there, as it says on the old card. No teams from Alberta advanced to the playoffs for the first time since 1945. Hasn't happened in 79 years. There it is. Alberta not represented in the CFL Playoffs for the first time since 1945. And as soon as I sent you that graphic from last week, actually it was on Sunday I sent you that graphic. You had that made up. So
the funny thing was, as you were finding that, I was making that. I was making it. Like that's why, like, as soon as you sent it and I noticed that the message came in, like I sent it like right to you. I was like, that's funny how you were looking at that, because I was already looking at articles and certain things, like reading up on some things, and fired that unit back on off to you.
So it looks like this week this will be again the battle of who could care less, because Calgary is starting Matthew Schultz, and Stampeders fans are going to drink their schlitzes. Edmonton's starting. The Elks are starting Trey Ford again. I think he's just an audition for next year to see if he sticks around, because I think McLeod Bethel Thompson is. I think his time is done in Edmonton. He's walking out the door, and from what I understand, there's rumblings and stumblings about whether one of these two teams is going to vie for the services of one Vernon Adams Jr. in the postseason. So there's a little bit of a take for you. Give me the Elks by 1 million. I gotta pick somebody, so I'm gonna pick the Elks. It's not gonna be a pretty game. Much like the Labor Day game, this is not gonna be pretty. Give me the Elks, and Calgary. Congratulations, you will probably secure yourself the number 1 pick in the CFL draft coming up in April. So at least you have that to hang your hat on.
You know, I don't think it really mother-fathering matters who we pick in this one. And we agreed with the last one. I think that we have to disagree with something at some point, even though it doesn't really matter.
No, it doesn't.
And the Calgary Stampeders, they need this for their courage. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they probably will lose and lock up the number 1 pick, I'm going to go with the Calgary Stampeders. One, because this doesn't matter. This game doesn't matter. And I'm going to be honest, just as honest as you're probably going to be after I say this. I'm going to look at the highlights. I'm not watching this game tomorrow. I refuse.
Yeah, no, I'm not. Highlights. Highlights is where it's at. YouTube it.
I will watch the highlights on as fast of a speed as they will allow it, just so I can get it over with. Like it's happening, okay? Because there's not going to be much to look at.
No.
I'm looking at those highlights as fast as you possibly can spin them at me, because even in that short period of time, I will get out of it what I need to get out of it.
It's Tracy Morgan and 30 Rock. Tough to watch. It's where he got his EGOT.
We shall see, but we wish you luck, though. We wish you luck to give us a game that we will be upset that we missed.
Hey. Who's giving them the business?
All right, looking now, we have 2 more games to look at and 1 more Saturday game tomorrow, as the BC Lions at 7:00 p.m. Eastern time will be in Saskatchewan to take on the Roughriders. The BC Lions, who are 8-8, the away team coming to Saskatchewan. The Roughriders are 8-7-1. Do the Lions improve to 9-8, or do the Roughriders improve to 9-7-1, my man?
It depends on which Lions team shows up. It is one of the 2 cat named teams in this league. Are they going to play like Battle Cats, like we've seen them play like over this season, or we're going to see them play like Cringers, like we've seen them play over the last 2 months? It's going to depend on which team shows up. If the Battle Cats show up, it's going to be a great game, and I think they could steal a win. If it's the Cringers, Roughriders are going to absolutely ground and pound this team, because this defense has been playing spectacularly well over the past 2 weeks. We've talked about Roland Milligan having the season he's had, 8 interceptions. If he can pick off Nathan Rourke, get to 9, maybe 10. Let's see how this defense will fare against this team, against this Lions offense, who's been, let's face it, they've been struggling. And it's going to be a home crowd at Mosaic Stadium. It's going to be rowdy. It's going to be rough. It's going to be rough. It's going to be rough and rowdy. With
Rough and rowdy.
AJ Willett is back in the lineup. He's going to help Trevor Harris kind of balance out the offense a little bit. So the Roughriders just needed to do enough against the BC Lions pass rush, which has been great, frankly been great since Matthew Betts came back to the team. So I'm going to go with the Roughriders in this one. It's going to be But the final score is going to depend on which Lions team shows up. But I just think the home crowd, having the home crowd behind them, and having that defense, Roland Milligan doing his thing, I'm going to say it's going to be single digits, but it's going to be like 7 or 8. The Riders win by.
Okay. I'm not going to disagree when it comes to the fact that the Roughriders are going to win this game. They're going to improve to 9-7-1 because they have been showing us over the past couple of weeks that they have not completely fallen off the wagon. Because of similar points that you brought up, AJ Alouette coming back. Hopefully he is well rested. Hopefully he's ready to rock and roll. Hopefully we don't see Frankie Hickson out there too much. And hopefully they can establish some play action and get some more work out of their receivers, but also more of an established run out of their running backs, including Alouette, in a safe way. So that way he is healthy for the playoffs. They don't run him into the ground. I'm going to go with the Roughriders winning this game. Even though we have to give the Lions credit where it's due. They've done a great job considering the turnover they've had at the quarterback position and at other positions throughout this team throughout the year. Because when Vernon Adams Jr. was out of there, earlier in the season and things started to decline a little bit, even though they were still finding a way to win games, when things were declined to the point to where they now have 8 losses, you could completely say that this team is hook, line, and sinker. They're done. Okay. Now, with what they've been able to find with Rourke as their quarterback in there, it hasn't been pretty with how he's been getting these wins, but he's still been finding a way to win. I will not be surprised if the Lions find a way to pull this out. Okay. I don't want it to happen as a 2024 new fan of the Roughriders. I want to see Saskatchewan win this motherfathering game and win it decisively and continue to build on that momentum that they've established over the past couple of weeks, because you got other teams like the Blue Bombers. If you have to face them in the playoffs at some point, it's not going to be an easy one at all. And we already know the matchups they have over the final 3 weeks. We could be talking about this in similar context again. But right here and now, I'm going to agree with you for the second time out of 3 games and say the Roughriders win this. I'm not too sure as far as score goes. I do like your prediction of a close game within that. I don't want to get too far into it and wrapped up into it to go score-wise. But what I will say is I've just got a strong feeling that the Roughriders win this. But it may come down to a last-second field goal or something. It may be that close of a game when you look at the production that we've gotten out of the Lions this year in the CFL. I'm not going to be surprised if they find a way to tip the scale, but I'm going to stick with you and say that the Roughriders are going to win this game this weekend.
Hey. Who's giving them the business?
And now to our final game of the week here for the 2-minute drill. Let's take a look at the Ottawa Red Blacks, who are 8-6-1, traveling to Montreal to take on the number 1 team of the league, the 11-3-1 Alouettes. It's a Monday game. It's a weird times. Monday afternoon at 1:00 p.m. Eastern. You got to work around the NFL schedule somehow, and that's how they found a way to do it. 1:00 p.m. Eastern time. Not many people will probably be watching this game in comparison to the other games that they're going to watch this weekend. Or I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, because this is a pretty decent contest when you look at it. You will. And at 1:00, I will still be home for we'll be doing Total Football Talk from 1 to 2, wrapping up the last of the 3rd hour. So I will not be watching this game. The highlights I will check out, and I can listen in to the last bit of it on the way to work. But on Monday, 1:00 p.m. Eastern time, the matchup between the Red Blacks and the Alouettes, 1:00 p.m. Eastern time this Monday. Who do you have and why, my man?
I'll tell you why there's a 1:00 game on Monday. Because Monday is Thanksgiving in Canada.
What?
Yes.
Hold up.
This Monday is Columbus Day. Oh, there goes my camera. There we go. So Monday, while it is Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day, whichever you call it, in Canada, the second Monday in October is Thanksgiving. In Canada.
I promise it's not muted. I promise. I'm finding my words.
You're not having another stroke. You're not having another
No,
stroke.
no, I'm feeling okay when it comes to that. No,
You're not spilling toast. You're not spilling toast.
No,
You're not slurring your words.
I've learned. I've learned that in that case, if I'm feeling funny before we just don't click the button. We don't start it. We reschedule. Okay. I'm trying to find the word. I'm gonna have to do a history lesson. I don't want to say anything too far-fetched, but the second Monday of October.
Second Monday of October is Thanksgiving in Canada.
I'm gonna have to look at this whole pilgrimage setting for this because I'm just very.
No, it's not like Plymouth Rock or nothing like that. It's different. But yeah. Over the last, I think it's the fourth consecutive. They used to play Thanksgiving Day games in Canada on the regular, until a while ago. But then Montreal has traditionally played over the last four seasons. They've played the second Monday in November. So tomorrow they'll be having, I guess, from what I've learned, tomorrow or Sunday, excuse me, Canadians will be sitting down with Thanksgiving with turkey and dressing and all that stuff, and whatever they do in Canada for Thanksgiving on Monday, the day off. And man, you drank that angrily.
I am angry. I'm angry that I'm 37 years old. And I'm just finding out about Canada having freaking Thanksgiving like 5 to 6 weeks earlier than us.
You've never looked at the calendar. You've never looked at the calendar. You're telling me at 37 years old. Yeah, I'm 47 myself. You're telling me that you've never looked at a printed calendar, and on the second Monday in October, it says Columbus Day, and underneath it says Thanksgiving, and in parentheses, Canada. You've never seen that.
I probably have, but I forgot. It wasn't like something I paid attention. I don't get Canadian calendars.
Well, anyway.
I mean,
there is a 4th of July in Canada. It's just not Independence Day. Canada Day is a couple days before. But we celebrate all the basically a lot of the similar holidays, but they have more what are called bank holidays. They're basically British adjacent. Anyway, getting back to this game.
Trailer Park Boys did not teach me any of this.
Neither did Letterkenny.
No,
apparently,
no.
But anyway, getting back to the game. Yes, there is a game on Monday afternoon. I'll probably be watch listening from my home computer. I don't know if it's going to be on CBS Sports Network or if it's going to be on CFL Plus. Either way, I'm still gonna watch/listen to it while I'm at work. Because I don't get Columbus Day off, which is a shame. That's another story. I'm looking at the injury report for the Ottawa Red Blacks. Even with the bye week, they still have a lot of injuries, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Drew Brown, he's been struggling with an ankle injury. He got hurt in July. They kind of rushed him back, and now they're starting to see the consequences from that. Devontae Dedmon, limited in practice. Braylon Addison, Justin Hardy did not practice today. Dominic Rhymes, limited. They've got some injury issues. Meanwhile, for Montreal, they're with the exception of I want to say Austin Mack. They're getting their health back. They're getting healthy again on the offensive side of the ball. It's a home crowd. It's a holiday crowd. It's going to be sold. Percival Molson Stadium is going to be sold out, which is awesome. It's a great sight to see whenever you see Percival Molson Stadium filled to the brim and then some. It's going to be a good day. And I just think that Montreal's defense, especially against a wounded Red Blacks offense, is going to have a very dominant day. Montreal's going to get their groove back. I don't think the rushing attack is going to be. Their running attack needs to step up. They've got an extra week to figure things out on that side of the ball. But I see a Montreal Alouettes win, just because Ottawa has been so hurt, and Darius Pickett, unfortunately, he's out for the rest of the year. This was confirmed a couple weeks ago. He suffered an injury and is out for the rest of the season. He was the heart and soul at defense, especially in the secondary. And they miss him, and you've seen it on the field, in consecutive losses, and they kind of back ended into a playoff spot. So they've secured a playoff spot. No, it's just a matter of how they wind up in the standings as to whether or not they host a playoff game. Right now, they're in the driver's seat with Toronto right behind them, and Hamilton's got a snowball's chance of getting in at this point. Although Hamilton plays Calgary next week, and then they conclude their season against Ottawa. So that is the next 2 weeks for the Hamilton Tiger Cats will be something to watch. But for this game, I think Montreal wins. It won't be a complete blowout. But I think they'll see some separation in the second half between both teams, just because of how injured Ottawa has been over the past month, and it showed on the field. It showed against Saskatchewan. Had a bye week, get some health, but again, looking at the injury report, it doesn't look great. And I loved me some Jeremiah Masoli. He'll probably win comeback player of the year in the CFL. He's facing one of the best pass rushes in the league in Montreal, and a great defense and a great secondary too. So I don't see a positive result for the Red Blacks. I'm going Montreal on this one.
You bring up a lot of great points.
Have you calmed down from that mind-blowing fact?
Thank you for actually going a little bit over on that, because I
you had to calm down.
Yeah, there were certain things. I don't know if it was like written on my face, but I kind of towards the end of my rant was getting a little bit concerned because my blood pressure was going up, and I have not taken my blood pressure medicine today. Okay,
geez.
Well, I'm kind of got it timed to take it like later in the evening anyway.
Gotcha.
So yeah, it's because how my work schedule is. It's not like the most regular work schedule. So
yes,
I could feel my blood pressure boiling as I was going up, and like when you said that, I was like, "Oh, expletive." It's like a sign. Like you just said like an omen. Like I need to calm the expletive down. Like because I was having fun. I was having a little bit too much fun.
And then he drops the bomb.
And then he drops dead.
Ryan drops the bomb. The man dies on live stream after fact giving.
After not learning from the first time when he almost died on live stream. Yes. But, at least I could say in that case, he went out doing what he enjoyed doing. But no, I do not have any intentions of croaking while on the air. But hopefully that was some good entertainment for you guys. Ryan brings up a lot of great points for this right here. And I agree with most of them, if not all of them, because the Alouettes, there's been no team in the league that has excited me to this point when watching them quite like the Alouettes have, based on the way they've played this year. They've been a well-balanced team throughout, even at parts where they've been banged up and had injuries and had miscues, and their 3 losses and their 1 tie, they even showed flashes of great things in the losses and the tie, and they still kept fighting throughout. The only other team that's excited me to the point of the Alouettes have by watching them have been the Roughriders. Found one more way to get that in there. But yes, it's in this game right here, the Red Blacks, they're a very similar story than the Roughriders when you look at how things started off the beginning of the year for them, and then they were just back and forth. There's been inconsistencies in different levels of their play that have affected them throughout this year, which is why they're barely over 500. And they're going to be just even more barely over 500 when they lose this game this upcoming Monday on Canadian Thanksgiving, which I'm still mad at myself 37 and a half years in. And I'm just learning on October 11th 2024 about Canadian Thanksgiving. I'm not saying that they didn't have it. Not saying they didn't believe in it. I'm just saying that I just didn't know the date. Or not really the date, but the time of the week or the time of the month, or that's probably the worst way to phrase that, but the time of the year, the month of the year, the point in time of which Canadian Thanksgiving transpires. And yes, I just dropped the ball royally on that, but hey, you see where I'm coming from. I'm going with the Alouettes winning this game. They're going to improve to 12-4-1 and be one step closer to asserting dominance in the CFL playoffs as we round out the 2-minute drill.
Hey. Who's giving them the business?
Speaking of rounding it out, we got to go to one more thing, and that is to the post game.
Total Football Talk Extra.
As long as it's one. That's great. I love it.
It's that time in the show where we take it to the post game as we give our closing thoughts on the show. And before we give our closing thoughts, let's give some closing comments from our guy Sick Diggy as he says, Ryan McCarthy is correct. They celebrate Thanksgiving in October in Canada. I celebrate Christmas on December 25th, as well as on a legend's birthday of January 7th. That legend is me, because my birthday is January 7th. So yes, I just refer to myself as a legend. I refer to everyone as legends. If you're breathing and have a skill.
Were you also born in a manger? With the star,
not.
with angels, chorus of angels around you, and trumpeting your arrival into this world.
I was not.
I'm sorry.
I was not. Shout out to Kramer with the stroking of the beard. Now back to January 7th. All right.
Lord, please, Lord, I apologize. Please be with Pick Me's New Guinea. Amen.
I feel like I was destined for something because I was born the day after Elvis's birthday. Elvis was born on January 6th. So greatness born the first week of January.
Fun fact, I was born 4 days after he died, allegedly.
Hopefully you were not born in a bathroom near a toilet.
No, I was definitely born in a hospital.
All right, good. Because, I mean, we already know how he went out. All right.
On the throne. Yes.
On the throne.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's why he's King Elvis.
So be careful when you're pushing things out. You don't want to end up like him. Now, back to the next statement. I learned about Canadian Thanksgiving when I was 19. You always learn something new. I mean, yeah, today was Canadian Thanksgiving is what I learned. Again, I knew that there was such a thing. I just didn't know when. So very good. I just assumed it was November, just like ours. It's just a different day. They didn't teach this in South Park, for that matter. Andrew Williams.
Hey, chili poops, we talk about Thanksgiving over here. Cartman knows about chili poops. He doesn't know about Thanksgiving up in here.
Cabos.
It could have been worse at Ryan McCarthy. Imagine if a 5'2" brunette named Debbie showed up paging the night nurses. Here we go with this bull expletive again. And if you want to continue to see bull expletive, subscribe now and never miss out on new Mother, Father, and content.
No, that 5'2" brunette named Debbie. That's on Only Drews. It's not on this channel. It's on Only Drews.
I now wish I never did that stupid ass little Debbie reel. Like this is where this is coming from. But when it comes for that, now with the post game, considering messages that I just read, Ryan McCarthy, what are your thoughts when it comes to the post game?
Well, unfortunately, a 5'2" brunette named Debbie won't be coming into my study while I get my final thoughts. But if she did, I would cut this talk very short.
Jesus. Jesus.
Anyway, let's get back on track. All right, McLeod Bethel Thompson, we'd have to sit down and have a little chat, my friend. After spending a year in the UFL, well, what was known as the XFL with the now defunct New Orleans Breakers, give me back my New Jersey Generals, Dwayne Johnson, came back to the CFL, given a nice, tidy contract with the Edmonton Elks. You were expected to get more or less solidify the quarterback position, especially with Trey Ford. Still learning the professional game. Yes, he's grew up in Canada. He played Canadian football, but it's different level when you're a pro than in college. So you were kind of brought in to be that kind of, I'm not going to say father figure, but that mature presence in the locker room, especially with the quarterback unit. And you have proved to be anything but with your inane comments off the field to the media. You've been fined a couple of times by the CFL for criticizing the officials, and you'll probably get another fine this week after you criticize the officials again after last week's game against Saskatchewan. You complained about the schedule, how you're playing 3 games in 10 days. There's not much time between games. Just a lot of complaining this year. And I understand, because you're stuck on a team that when it got off to an 0-7 start, fired their head coach, fired the head coach. Now there's a little bit of stability with ownership, with private ownership for the first time in Edmonton Elks history, Eskimos/Elks history. But it doesn't help your team, it doesn't help your cause, for you individually and for your team, when you're complaining about the officials every single week, or you're complaining about the schedule, or complaint of the day filed to the complaints department. All right. This is where the complaints department goes. All right. It goes in here. Who are currently in Cancun.
I dropped my headset. I dropped my
Good thing you're off camera. But that's where your complaints go. They go in the garbage can, and you're shelling out the money from the contract that you got to come back to the CFL because you felt the need to prove yourself in America. Yeah, and yes, congratulations to you. You set the record for the most passing yards in a season in the now defunct XFL, now called the UFL. Congratulations to you. Unfortunately, it didn't turn into an NFL contract after that, so you come back to the CFL to try to help a young team. And what are you doing? You're setting an example of what not to do. You don't complain about the officials to the media. You don't complain about the schedule. The schedule is what the schedule is. They determine this months ahead of time. So if you want to stay in this league, if you want to stay in the CFL, if you want to stay with the Edmonton Elks or the Calgary Stampeders, or maybe, God forbid, the Hamilton Tiger Cats, if you go there, if Bo Levi Mitchell decides to retire at the end of the season, you want to show, this is an audition for you to show that you're professional. You won a Grey Cup in 2019. You won a Grey Cup with Toronto a few years ago. Granted, you weren't the one on the field leading the team at the end of the game. You're on the sideline nursing a broken wrist. Be a professional, man. Be a professional. Set an example for the teammates who are coming into this league, want them to be professionals, and want to prolong a dream. You're living that dream. And yes, we share the same facial hair. I appreciate you for that. But man, at your age, be a leader. Be a positive leader. Don't be a negative Nancy. Be a positive leader. And God bless you in your next stage. Whether you're still in Edmonton this year or you're somewhere else. But this year you've shown you're not a professional. You're not a stand-up guy. Act your age. Be a professional. And shut up.
Ouch. I like it. Ryan McCarthy coming up here, dropping dimes. And sometimes, I will not say in his case, but sometimes you have to show him a little bit of personal sides, maybe work within the gray area of professionalism in order to get certain points across. Not like the diddler, but like in other ways that we need to discuss. No, I'm not saying anywhere close to the diddler. Okay. All right.
No baby oil here.
No. But I will make a close up here so that way Mr. McCarthy can prepare for exitories. Now, when it comes to my audio went out. Thank you, Sick Diggy. Thank you guys for tuning in because I had something serious I want to talk about. Let's try this again. So last Sunday I went out for a little bit, and you can hear me now, Sick. You can hear me. I can see your comments. Thank you very much. There's people that are stuck in the past. There's people that have opinions of the past that need to keep their mouth shut. Okay. And this was said to me while out and about watching football, getting up with some people, a friend that I hadn't seen in a while, a brother. And it was not him that said this. It was somebody that was within general atmosphere out in public. Imagine a place like Buffalo Wild Wings where you go and you got several TVs around, different games on. It wasn't Buffalo Wild Wings, and it was an establishment. It was a business. It's pretty close to my hometown. And because I had time that I was able to spare, and because I missed my friend and I hadn't been able to get out and do some things in a while, I got out. And there was a comment that was made to me that somebody was looking for me at some point. Wanted to catch up. You just wanted to know what I was up to because I hadn't been around in a while. And they asked, in the words of the name down here, because that is my real name, they said, where's Drew Willingham at? And, they started to describe who I was to this one individual who's not really close into my circle or anything, but knows of me, and said a remark that kind of caught me off guard when they were describing this situation to me of this one person asking the other person if they had seen me in a while. And the one person said, the only Drew Willingham I know is black. Now, think about that for a second, as I thought about that in that moment. And there were some things that I responded with that I think completely mind expletive this person. As again, this is going on in a football setting. I hadn't seen certain individuals in quite some time, but on this past Sunday, when you said the comment, the only Drew Willingham that I know is black, and I looked at this person and they're dead in their face, and I said, why is that? And he couldn't say anything. It was like deer in the headlights. And I said, are you referring to when I make promos and I put them up in the stories? And yes, I'm a fan of all types of music. Are you referring to the fact that I'm using hip hop music, 50% of the time, if not more than that? Are you referring to the fact that I'm using hip hop music in my promos? Again, nothing. I said, are you referring to the fact of the individuals of high qualifications to discuss the things that we discuss on our podcast and the orientation of their backgrounds? Again, nothing. I said, well, if you're going to have the expletive, because I'm censoring myself because where we're at. So if you're going to have the expletive to say that the only Drew Willingham that you know is black, then you better back it up with some facts. And especially when you are standing in front of somebody who's tough as nails, who's going to challenge you on this. I'm challenging you right here and now. Because if you're saying this because you're watching the promos that I'm putting up in my stories for Instagram, Snapchat, sometimes TikTok, the promos on, and sometimes I meant to say sometimes on X, formerly Twitter, but mostly on TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, and then sometimes on Facebook. If you're going to have the audacity to say that, if you're going to be a racist piece of crap because you disagree with the individuals that I'm hosting on my show or working with, You can take your opinion and shove it somewhere else. As I'm doing my best to not fall in that category of what Ryan McCarthy just described for that one player for the CFL. This one person that I'm discussing, and I'm not going to say a name. I'm not going to slanderize anybody on this freaking on the streams, because you could be watching on Facebook for right now, for all I know, or watching on my YouTube channel, because you have, whether you're a fake expletive had said a year or so ago that you would subscribe to it once I was advertising it on different channels. So you're seeing what I'm doing. The only color that I see is green. The money that is in my pocket, that's in my savings account, that pays for the different things that I have, is paying for this right here. It's paying for this stream. It's paying for the software that I use to make for the graphics. I don't care what somebody looks like, you piece of expletive. And it's really hard for me to watch what I'm saying right here when it comes to that. Because there's one thing that I do not have any room for in my life. Somebody that's judgmental on other people based on how they look or what their background is. Because I was raised better than that. There's not one racist bone in my body. And it shows with how I present myself in the streets, not just in the streams. It shows with the friends and the people and the family, the people that I consider family, that that are outside of my bloodline, people that I consider family, they have backgrounds way outside of mine that I learn different things from each and every single time I interact with them. Okay. And it's not just one background, it's several different ones. And I don't have to explain them to you. I don't have to explain them to the next person. Just ride along, buckle up, because it's a bumpy ride. It's fun. Okay. Your stale self hasn't gotten outside of a box. And your opinion to me means nothing, as you in the what I witnessed last Sunday are still, who's in their 50s now, is nothing. So I went outside the box a little bit, outside of football for my post-game take. But given the fact that I'm on Facebook today, there might be a chance that you're watching this today. And I hope so. And I hope you tuned in for the very end of it. And I'm going to leave the stream up there, and I hope you see it. A reminder of how I checked you last week. A reminder of how I'll do it again if I come across you again, because I will not voluntarily be in your presence anymore. I have no time for ignorance of that caliber. I have very little time to begin with because of the things that I am involved in. And I'm not complaining. I love it. I love spending the time that I do here and now on Friday with Ryan. I love the time I spend with my other projects and the other individuals who give their heart and soul to what they put in to make these things as good as they are. If you're going to take time to disparage different things because of what somebody looks like, or the color of their skin, or the fact that they may talk differently than you, or the fact that I may use different types of music because I'm multi-diverse when it comes to that, because of how I grew up. I love all types of music. I love all types of people. I don't care what they look like, because again, is whatever I do out there, my ultimate goal at the end of the day is to stack green as far as money and save it, because this world continues to get worse, and have a future. And that future I want to have is with people who want to have the same things in life that I do and look at life the same way, maybe not the same exact way, but in a similar way that I do, with the same core values, because your core values absolutely suck. And it's people like you that I feel like should have had to take an IQ test before they had children. With that being said, my rant is now over.
So, you know where that opinion belongs of him?
Bring it back.
It shares the same office as the complaints department.
Yes! We're on the same page with that as well. Yes. I love it. That is a great way to end the show, because believe me, I'm not that kind of person. I don't put people on blast in the public as far as name base, but this person, their life is a complete. Look at the comments one last time. Our man Sick Diggy says, "You're electric, Andrew Willingham. You're multifaceted and very diverse in your preferences." I appreciate that, my man. As always, as somebody else, Sick and I have had, conversations, audio conversations outside the streams. Sick is a very down to earth person, and is another person that, with all the words I just said, can help me back them up. So again, I have no time, zero time for a racist piece of craps. And we'll cross paths again, me and said individual. And what I said to them on that day, I will repeat it. And I hope this person does not have the audacity to say that stupid crap again. Because at that point, probably I'm just going to walk away. But now that we're 2 hours into this show, I was supposed to start Commander's Gridiron Report at 7 o'clock. It's all good. We're going to start it a little bit later because we had way too much fun today. You will see Ryan again with no credentials required very, very soon, as he is doing some things today to get ready for that next episode. But live in the action, I'm going to push it back probably another 30 minutes. But you will see me here in about 30 minutes or so with the Commander's Gridiron Report, episode 28, as we have to review last week's game with the Browns and preview this Sunday's game against the Ravens. As always, if you're new, subscribe now and never miss out on new content so you can see the action from Ryan McCarthy and no credentials required, as well as his belly up media stuff. And you can see me and Cole Johnson between SIRTOBA Media and COMI Media if you'd like to check that out. I will be back in about 30 to 40 minutes with Commander's Gridiron Report after I take a short break. You all, hope to see you again here in the comment zone, as we only have one more thing left to do, and that's look at one badass outro from our man Cole Johnson. For Ryan McCarthy, I am Drew Willingham, as I click one more button because he deserves to have his face under his face one more time. Everyone, as always, stay safe out here in these streets. Say it again.
Happy Thanksgiving, Canada.
Canada, you screwed me all up. Take care, everybody.